The ground is turning to dust, not crumbling, not cracking, dissolving, like something ancient is forgetting it was ever solid. A child reaches down to touch the red earth, and her fingers come back empty. No dirt, no stone, just a fine, copper-colored nothing drifting off the edge of the cliff like smoke. The city is still standing, but it will not be standing for long. She is up before dawn, weaving faster than she has ever woven, copper wire through living vine, hand over hand, her fingers bleeding where the metal bites. She is not making cloth, she is not making art, she is making the only thing standing between 50,000 people and a fall that has no bottom. And she knows something she has told no one. The stitches are losing. He hears it before anyone else does. The hum, the constant ancient hum that this city was built inside of, that people here are born hearing and die hearing, is getting quieter. He presses his ear to the rock face, the way his caste was trained to do, the way that made them useful enough to keep alive, but never respected enough to matter. And what he hears in the fading sound is not silence. It is a decision. Someone, somewhere, chose this. Stay with this story, because by the end, you will understand why the ground your kingdom stands on was never really yours, and what it costs when the thing holding you up has been dying slowly, and everyone in power knew and built their throne on top of it anyway.
The sun has not yet risen over the singing cliffs. Kenza kneels at the eastern edge of the plateau, her tools spread across a woven mat. She picks up a strand of copper wire and threads it between her fingers. The wire bites. She does not stop. Below her, the city of Asura sleeps. 50,000 people in houses built into the red clay walls. Bridges hanging between mesas like the work of patient spiders. All of it built by weavers, all of it held by copper and vine. She presses her palm flat against the ground. The hum moves through her bones. It has always been there. Since she was a girl learning her first knot at her mother's knee, the hum was underneath everything. People called it the voice of the wind. Priests called it the breath of the ancestors. Kenza calls it the only reason she cannot sleep. She pulls a bioluminescent vine from the clay pot beside her. The vine glows faint blue in the dark. She begins to weave it through the copper wire with practiced hands, left over right, right over left, tightening at each cross. This section of the South Bridge has been dissolving for 3 days. She does not tell the bridge council. She tells them the bridge needs reinforcing. They nod and write her name in the ledger of diligent workers. They do not ask why reinforcing never ends. 200 meters below, a chunk of red clay falls from the mesa wall. There is no sound when it hits. It simply stops existing before it reaches the bottom. Kenza watches it go. She ties her next knot tighter. Across the plateau, in the worker quarter pressed against the lowest cliff face, a young man wakes up before his body is ready. He sits up from his sleeping mat and holds completely still. His name is Zoran. He is listening. He turns his head slowly to the left, then to the right. The hum is quieter than yesterday. He presses his bare feet against the floor and feels it through his soles, the way he was trained. His caste learned to read the cliffs through the body, through skin and bone, and held breath. He closes his eyes. What he hears is wrong.
Zoran descends into the tunnels before the first work bell sounds. He carries his echo staff, a hollow copper rod, thin as a finger, that he presses to surfaces to amplify vibration. He runs his hand along the tunnel wall as he walks. The rock feels the same as always, but sound is not the same as touch. He stops at a junction where 3 tunnels meet. This is called the throat. Voice mappers trained here as children, listening to how sound moved through the junction to find new copper veins deeper in the cliff face. He presses the echo staff to the center stone. He closes his eyes and listens. The copper vein running northeast hums at the pitch he knows. The vein running west gives a lower note. But the deep note, the one that comes from far below all the veins, the one that does not belong to any copper deposit he has ever mapped, that note is thinner than it was last week. He writes nothing down. His people are not given ledgers. He memorizes instead. By mid-morning, Zoran has been assigned to the upper mesa with 4 other voice mappers to locate a new vein for the Crown's monthly copper quota. He walks with them, but listens separately. The others tap the walls with their staffs in rhythm. It is good technique, but rhythm can hide what silence reveals. He stops walking. The others continue without looking back. Zoran presses his ear directly to the cliff face, skin on red clay. His eyes close. He filters out the wind, the footsteps, the city noise above. He reaches for the deep note. It skips, not fades, skips, like a heartbeat that forgot its count. "Move along, mapper!" A Crown guard at the tunnel entrance waves him forward without looking at him. Zoran straightens up. He moves along. That afternoon, he takes the long route back through the weaving district. He passes through the shadow of the Grand Weave Hall and stops. Above the hall's entrance, the outer wall is laced with fresh copper wire and vine. The weave pattern is dense, desperate even. He looks at it for a long moment. He has never spoken to the Grand Weaver. His caste does not speak to hers. But he stands there and memorizes the pattern of her stitches, reading them the way he reads sound. They say the same thing the rock said. Something is losing hold. A merchant from the salt flats arrives at the Crown Gate at noon. He is small, dressed in pale linen, carrying 2 sealed trade jars. The gate guards inspect the jars, dried fish paste, common trade goods. They wave him through and stamp his papers. He thanks them quietly and walks into the city. He does not go to the market. He walks to the edge of the lower plateau where the residential quarter thins and the cliff drops away into open air. He crouches, sets down his jars, and opens his coat. Inside the lining there is a device, brass and leather, and a coiled tube. He assembles it with the quick hands of someone who has done this many times. He points the coiled tube toward the cliff face. He breathes in. He holds it. He activates a small bellows mechanism inside the device, and the tube pushes a precise, narrow stream of pressurized air at a specific frequency into the stone. The hum stutters. He packs the device back into his coat, picks up his jars, and walks calmly to the market. That same hour, Kenza's newest section of vine weave turns gray and goes dry. She is standing right next to it when it happens. A living vine, still connected to the cliff root, turns the color of old ash and crumbles when she touches it. She sits back on her heels. She presses her fists against her knees to keep her hands from shaking. This is the 3rd dead section this week, and each time it dies in the same way, not from the outside in, from the inside out, as if whatever animates the vine from below is simply withdrawing. She reaches into the dry earth beside the dead weave and digs down with her fingers. 6 inches deep, she finds copper dust. Not a vein, not a deposit, dust. She holds it up. It drifts off her palm like smoke in the wind. She has known something for 4 years that she has told no one. The copper is not mineral. She discovered it by accident, running a chemical test her teacher taught her for identifying vine nutrients.
The copper beneath Asura does not match any known rock formula. It matches blood, old blood, ancient, dried, and compressed into the walls of the entire cliff system. She covers the hole back up with her foot. She picks up her tools and keeps weaving.
The second merchant arrives 2 days later. He uses a different gate. He carries tools for roof repair and has a work order from a building in the upper district. The guards are bored. They wave him through. He does not go to the upper district. At midnight, Zoran wakes to the sound of nothing. He sits up. He holds completely still. The hum is gone. Not quieter, not fading, gone. He presses his feet to the floor. He presses his ear to the wall. He picks up his echo staff and holds it to the stone with both hands. Silence, complete and solid silence beneath the city. He is out the door before he thinks about whether to go. He moves through the dark streets at a run, heading for the edge of the plateau. Around him, the city is still asleep, but the ground beneath his feet feels different, softer. He focuses on each step, feeling through his soles. It is not his imagination. The upper mesa, near the Grand Weave Hall. He reaches the hall and stops. Kenza is already there. She is standing at the outer wall with a lamp, pressing her hand flat against a section of her copper weave. In the lamplight, he can see the vine threads are gray. The copper wire is dull. It should be bright, fed by the cliff below. She does not hear him approach. She is focused on the wall with the absolute concentration of someone counting down. He says, "The hum stopped." She turns sharply. Her lamp swings. He holds up his echo staff. "Voice mapper. I mapped the lower veins 3 days ago. The deep signal was already broken." She stares at him for a long moment. She puts her lamp down on the ground between them. She says, "How long have you known something was wrong?" 2 weeks, he says. "You?" She looks at the dead weave on the wall. She says, 4 years. He looks at the staff in his hands. He says, "Tell me what you know." She looks at him. She looks at the city of Asura spread out behind him. 50,000 people sleeping in houses built on something that is no longer humming. She says, "Come inside." Inside the weave hall, Kenza unrolls the oldest map. It is not a map of the city. It is a map of the cliffs, drawn in copper ink by someone who lived long before Asura was built. At the center of the map, barely visible under years of handling, is an outline. She traces it with her finger without touching the ink. The outline is a body, curled, enormous, occupying the entire plateau and cliff system, limbs folded, head resting where the northern mesa stands. Zoran holds his lamp close. She says, "The copper is blood. The hum is its heartbeat. The caves are its lungs." He looks at the map for a long time. He says, "And the weaving?" She pulls back her sleeves. Her forearms are covered in old scars where copper wire has bitten across years. Every stitch I make reinforces a failing section. I have been treating symptoms. I did not know what the cause was. He sets his echo staff on the map. The silence is deliberate. Someone is pushing a frequency into the stone to stop the sound. I can hear it, a thin, artificial note. It arrives and the hum stutters. She says, "The salt flats." He nods. She sits down. She presses the heels of her hands to her eyes. He does not try to offer comfort. He picks up the map and begins to trace the pattern of the creature's body with his finger, matching it against what he has memorized of the copper vein system over years of mapping. He says, "The sound travels in a circuit, heart to limb to head and back. If we can reinforce the circuit at the breaking points." She looks up. "With what material?" He sets the map down. "The dust." She goes very still. He says,
The dissolved copper is not gone. It drifts off the cliff edge, but it collects in the lower caves. I have seen it, packed dense in the low chambers. If you can weave something that reintroduces it to the circuit. She is already on her feet. She picks up her tools. She looks at the city through the hall window. The ground near the eastern edge catches the pre-dawn light and shimmers faintly, still dissolving. She says, "The crown will not help us." He says, "No." She says, "My weavers will." He picks up his echo staff, and I know every passage in the cliff. She hands him the lamp. He takes it. They leave the hall together before the city wakes, walking toward the edge, toward the lower caves, toward the dust of a creature that held an empire up for centuries without anyone ever learning its name. Kenza's hands are still bleeding from last night's work. Zoran presses his fingers to the wall as they walk, reading the silence, looking for where the sound broke first. Behind them, the city stirs. Children wake and step outside. They do not notice that the two people walking toward the cliff edge are carrying the only real answer the plateau has ever had. They are not warriors. They are not royalty. They are a woman who builds and a man who listens. And the ground beneath their feet begins, very faintly, to hum again.
The ground is still dissolving. Zoran and Kenza have one shot to save Asura, and the crown will not like what they find. Follow for the next chapter.